We'll continue here with the 18 root practices. And again, these are practices that if you were to do these practices, you would be going away from your intention. So these 18 are all signs to put you in the right direction. And the reason why they're stated, I remember when I was learning these and starting to practice these, I was sort of going, like, why does it have to be negative? Why can't they just say the positive stuff? Like, you know, celebrate people instead of don't criticize them, you know? And I thought about that, and then it came to me that perhaps one of the reasons is that we could be given the positive practice, but that being given the positive practice actually doesn't really help us recognize the negative practice as much that we're doing all the time. And we're very, very skilled at ignoring our negative habits. So my sense is that the most compassionate, the most supportive action that the awakened mind, your awakened mind, because these are coming from you, you're creating them through your inner inspiration, can do is to say, look at these things that are hurting you. Here are these 18, and again, they break down to a little bit more than that. But here are these actions, these habits that are hurting you. And once you put those signs up, like Geneva had that moment, that's a really good example of someone who has the sign up. You say it, and then you go like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I don't want to go that direction. You know, and just the recognition naturally sends you more on your course. You know, even if you're still having the experience or you're still feeling it, it changes you. So they're really helpful warning signs to have up around you. So here we are, number 5. Now we're no longer paired, but this one breaks down into 3 actually. So the overall vow is stealing what belongs to the 3 jewels. But the 3 jewels are the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So we break it out to stealing what belongs to the Buddha, stealing what belongs to the Dharma and Sangha. So I'd like to just say a little bit about these 3 refuge objects. Because again, we have to think, hopefully none of you are coming to the Mahasukha Center and sort of going, like, you know, someone's like, did you have a good teacher? You're like, yeah, but I got some Kavita. You know, so you know the way you break this vow full on is that you are you set yourself to obtain something that belongs to the 3 jewels, and that then through force, stealth, or craftiness you obtain that thing, you steal that thing. So that would include, you know, asking Jed to go take the Kavita for me. Whether he knows it's stealing or not, I would know that it was, you know. So that's sort of the hardcore traditional level, but as people who are really trying to become subtle with our practice and make it personal for our lives, we need to think about this. So let's just review. What is the conventional form of the Buddha jewel? The Buddha? That's not clear enough. What does that mean? Right, so Shakyamuni Buddha, who, you know, unless you're much older than you look, none of you met, historically, right? And what else? The living Buddha, right? So anyone who, in your view, is in an incarnation, an embodiment, and is an enlightened being. That is still a conventional form. So again, conventional always relates to form. So a teacher, oh, it just went out of my mind. But like Mother Teresa before she passed, maybe, if you have that view of her, something like that, right? Also the statues, the paintings, any image, any representation of an enlightened being is a conventional form of the Buddha jewel, okay? So we can, you know, sort of, that's pretty direct, okay? So stealing what belongs to the conventional form of the Buddha jewel would be that you stole a picture or a sculpture somehow, you kidnapped the teacher, right? Set them up in your house. You're just teaching me now, which would be breaking all kinds of vows, actually. So what's the ultimate form? And you said it, Tanel. The ultimate form of the Buddha jewel. Yeah, the emptiness, the awakened mind, which we all share. So the ultimate form of the Buddha jewel is the possibility in our own minds to become awakened, is our own potential. I'm not going to say what it would mean to steal from that, but what would it mean to steal from your own potential? When I think about that, I can get very practical with this vow in my life. When I think about some distractions that I participate in, I feel like maybe I'm stealing from my potential. I'm not feeding the awakened mind. I'm feeding the afflicted mind, maybe. Obviously, I'm moving off a very traditional understanding, but if you want these vows to really work for you, the point is not to just go like, check, I didn't steal anything from the Mahasukha Center today, right? The point is to try to sense, again, the spirit, and these are vertical. All these vows are vertical. So they're pointing you towards, they give you sort of the grossest action. And it's for you to take a vertical dive to see what that really means for you, okay? So the next one is the Dharma. So what's the conventional form of the Dharma jewel? Yeah, the teachings, the scriptures, right? So if you want to be hardcore traditional, you would say some kind of Mahayana Buddhist scripture or some kind of Buddhist scripture, but any scripture that's teaching spiritual, any scripture that's teaching someone to be a more generous, compassionate person and teaching someone that their actions matter is a Buddhist scripture, is a holy scripture. So we can, wrap our minds pretty easily around what it would mean to steal something like that, right? So what's the ultimate form? Yeah, the actual transformations in your own mind. And again, I know many of you know these very well, but just to say, it's only the ultimate forms that are really your protection. The conventional forms protect you through inspiration. But the ultimate forms protect you through realization, through actualization, through authority. And that ultimately is what will really protect you, right? Because when it's you and your mental affliction and your teacher isn't in the room, what's going to really protect you, right? And sometimes just thinking of your teacher can protect you in that moment. It can inspire you and you'll change how you act. But we want to try to get that inner authority and not have our refuge, our safety be based on things that are external from us, okay? So the ultimate form of the Dharma jewel are the realizations, the transformations in your own mind. So what would it mean to steal from that? Try to work that out for yourself. How do you steal from your own realizations? Maybe your afflictions co-opt them and you start to use them for personal gain or something like that. I don't know, I don't want to posit too much because I think these are interesting things to really think about, And then finally the Sangha. So what's the conventional form of the Sangha? Yeah, so traditionally, traditionalists, what is it? Yeah, anyone who's had the highest form of the Dharma, ultimate Dharma jewel, which is to have that perspective where you really see your ultimate nature directly. And then traditionally, that's someone who becomes a refuge, becomes a Sangha, okay? So that's the traditional conventional form. The conventional form, as you said, is anyone who's with you, anyone who's supporting your practice, all of us who are practicing in this room, anyone who's practicing any spiritual practice anywhere on the planet, which, by the way, is everyone. So you're around the Sangha all the time, okay? No one is not practicing a spiritual practice. They may just not be in a great mindfulness of it, but they're seeking happiness and trying to avoid pain, and that's a spiritual practice. So, to steal from the Sangha, the conventional form of the Sangha would be, I steal Geneva's text, which would also be stealing the Dharma jewel too, but, to forcibly steal from some of the Sangha. So, the ultimate form of the Sangha jewel is what? Yeah, so you can say anyone. So you can say conventionally, well, sorry, I spoke incorrectly. I was thinking about what Jed was saying. So let me go back. The conventional form of the Sangha Jewel, traditionally, it's like 3 monks and nuns. It's a certain number of monastics. What is it, 3 or 5? 4 monastics, people who are monastics. And then the conventional form is all of us. The ultimate form is someone who has seen emptiness directly, okay? So, so how do you steal from someone who's seen emptiness directly? I don't know, but it's interesting to think about, huh? I think the vow is pointing us towards that. And as I've said before, and I'll just say again, really important to recognize that the jewels are our protection. They're the 3 things that we go for protection to from our suffering. 2 of them, the ultimate Buddha jewel and the ultimate Dharma jewel, are unseeable. We're not there. There are potential, and there are recognition of our ultimate potential where we're not there anymore. So they're not in form, actually. The only real ultimate refuge is a being who has seen emptiness directly. Is someone in, so I just think it's very moving to recognize, again, it's pointing us towards connection. The only ultimate refuge that you can relate to is a being who you perceive has seen their ultimate nature, and or yourself who has seen your ultimate nature. Because when you see your ultimate nature, you become the ultimate Sangha jewel, okay? So, poor Dima, I'm going to bring it up for years now, but you know, when Dima said, well, what's the point of the Sangha jewel? This is the point of having the Sangha jewel, is that without the Sangha jewel, there's no ultimate refuge that you can relate to. And that's not the world we're seeking to participate in. The point of the spiritual practice is not that you blip out and disappear. That's not the point of spiritual practice. The point of the spiritual practice is you're able to participate joyfully, happily, in a confident way in your own life and feel deeply connected to other beings. That's the Sangha jewel, okay? And that's our refuge, is in other people and our view of them. You see, your ultimate refuge is in your view of other beings. If you can view all other beings as being someone who is incarnate of their ultimate nature, you are relating to the ultimate Sangha jewel. And again, then you must be very close to that yourself, right? So these are all relational. We're interested in relationship, not in some kind of separation. Okay, so moving on. Number 6 is giving up the highest Dharma. And this again is a lot of these are a bit technical, but this is relating to the other schools of Buddhism, and that you would say that those were not spoken by the Buddha. So you have the vow where you say, Mahayana scripture is not spoken by the Buddha. And then you have the practice or the vow where you wouldn't want to say any of the other practices were not spoken by the Buddha. So basically it's pointing you towards, try to see the awakened mind in all things, in all practices. Because where is it coming from? It's coming from your view. It's not awakened out there in and of itself, right? So try to generate the sense where you are respecting all traditions and you can sense the awakened spirit in all of those traditions. Number 7, taking away the golden robes and the rest, or removing someone from the status of an ordained person. In one of the traditional lineages of the Bodhisattva vows, the root practices are broken out into 3: king practices, minister practices, and like people practices, ordinary people practices. And we take them all because we have such a high level of agency over our own lives that we are like kings. If you were to look now from a traditional point of view, we would all be monarchs, the way we're able to act in our lives. So we take minister vows, we take king vows, and we take ordinary people vows, all right? This is one of them that goes with the king vows. Pretty sure it's the king. I'd have to look it up. It might also be a minister, but I think it's a king vow. Do you guys know? Does anybody know who studied them? I'm pretty sure it's a king vow. So in the traditional form of this, to break this, you would take away the robes of a monastic, beat them or otherwise physically defile them, such as raping a nun or something like that, incarcerate them, so put them in prison, or otherwise in some other way remove them from their status of being ordained. So of course you can't, one's status of being ordained, or if you were to take these commitments in a ritual level, these are relating at the level of your heart, your consciousness. No one can actually take those away from you. No one can remove those vows from you. But of course you can, on an outer worldly level, make that appearance and try to shame someone in some way. So, you know, hopefully no one is doing this. So we can look at our level of physically, okay? But we can look at our level of speech, and we can look at our level of mind in how we relate to anyone from any tradition who is in a monastic situation. And, you know, if you want to get really subtle with this, you know, you can just watch your mind and see where are you judging people who have taken vows. You know, even go beyond the monastics again. Now I'm sort of going out to the onion skins here, but if you're judging people who have taken vows, in some way you're removing them from their status. So, you know, think about how this might relate to you, how this might relate for you in this life. And of course, we never know. Political situations change very quickly. And, you know, I always think of what happened in Tibet when I read this vow, and I think, well, within a few months, this vow was like broken on all kinds of levels by all kinds of beings, you know. And not just with this vow, but with many, many things in our life. Sometimes we hear these things and we go, well, I don't have that kind of power. That's not something that I would do. And that's great to think that that's not something you would do now. But if the situation changed, right? So when we take these vows, they protect us in the sense that you would say, well, if the situation changed, I still would not do that, you know? Like in the lifetime layperson's vows that Michelle was talking about earlier, there's a vow not to kill a human or a human fetus. And you know, for a woman, that can be a big vow to take on. And you know, and you might think, well, in my current situation, no, you know, I wouldn't have an abortion. I'm not going to do that. No, but well, what if you get pregnant and you find out that, you know, your child has a 95% possibility of having cystic fibrosis? Then what? You know, and it's like, but if you've taken that vow, you have a clear line for yourself, you know, and so they can protect us in these ways. They can protect us from things that we can't foresee yet in the future that might come to us. That's part of that guru too, that secret body, that secret quality. You can think, if you were to anthropomorphize, does that work for things that aren't animals, that word?
I think it can be anything.
Good, okay, I'm going to pretend it's anything. I think it might technically be animals, but if you were going to anthropomorphize these vows, you would say these vows are able to see into your heart and to see your whole stream of lifetimes. So they're protecting you and they're supporting you not just in this moment. They're totally protecting you in this moment. But they're also protecting you 20 years from now, 60 years from now, 60 lifetimes from now. And I like to think of them that way, like they've got me covered, you know? So there are some vows when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, this vow is very applicable for me today, you know? And then there might be 20 of my Bodhisattva vows that I think, you know, that's not really applying to me so directly today. But that doesn't mean I'm not keeping it, you know? Just because it doesn't apply to me that day doesn't mean it's not supporting me somewhere in my consciousness, okay? So that's number 7. Number 8 is committing one of the 5 immediate misdeeds. This is also a king one. So the 5 immediate misdeeds, and they're called the immediate misdeeds because they say your consciousness will immediately go to a hell realm, to extreme misery if you do one of these 5 things. So kill your mother, kill your father, kill someone who's removed all their mental afflictions, which is an arhat, traditionally called an arhat, an enemy destroyer, or someone in nirvana, right? And in order to kill someone who's removed all their mental afflictions, it implies that you have to be seeing what? you have to be seeing someone who's removed all their mental afflictions. That's really extraordinary. You know, to take, so again, it's saying like, don't do this, but it's pointing you towards something. Have you seen anyone lately who's in nirvana? What do you think that looks like? You know, what's your fantasy of that? What might that be? Can you start to sensitize yourself to what it would be to relate to someone who's in nirvana? Of course, if you can do that, you'll get closer to nirvana yourself, right? If you never see anyone who has completely eliminated all their mental afflictions, you will never get there. It's impossible. You don't have any view to participate in relationship to, okay? So it would be good for all of us as quickly as possible to just start to say, well, I don't know the guru qualities in Geneva. I don't know the seeker qualities in Geneva. What if she's in nirvana? You know? Just as a, not as a dogma in yourself, but just as a play, a way to participate in your life in a way that's useful for you. It'd be better to see people in nirvana than people who are really pissed off and unhappy. So what would that, you know, what do you expect them? What do you expect them to look like? What do you expect them to do? It's nice to go to your, I always say to my students, go to your cartoon level of what you think it looks like. You know, is it someone in white robes who's just a little bit floating, who's like, hey, Narelle, hi, you're so beautiful. You know, like, is that the quality? Or, you know, is it someone who just doesn't ever appear to have any issues with anything? And maybe that's true. I don't know. You know, maybe that's what nirvana will be for you when you're participating with it. But could it be that the person that you're relating to is in nirvana, so they don't have any of their own concerns. They don't have any of their own afflictions. So they're just totally supporting you. And if you perceive that they're acting in a way that causes an affliction, you could think, oh, so they're helping me see that affliction. They have no affliction, so they don't have anything better than to point out mine, to help me, to support me. And then I can work with it, right? Then I can see, oh, that's the sign. I don't want to go that way. Now I can redirect, right? I don't know. The next one, attempting to draw blood from a Buddha with evil intent. So again, same deal. This implies what? That you're seeing a Buddha. You're seeing a fully awakened being. Pretty freaking good, okay? You would have to be insane to try to kill a fully awakened being. Of course you would lose all your bodhisattva vows because you're insane. You know, you're in profound evil intention. You know, you're in profound suffering. So same deal. What is your fantasy of a Buddha? Really, we all have it, okay? So try to get clear on it for yourself. What are they going to look like? You know, what are they? Recently, I live in Ojai, and this great Indian saint came. For some reason, they all come when I'm in retreat. And then I have this whole mental affliction where I'm like, down the street is this saint, but I'm supposed to be in retreat. Anyway, I didn't go, but I found out beforehand. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, he's pretty close to my fantasy of a Buddha, like the way they were sort of picturing him, you know? And I thought, well, that's really helpful to just see this. You know, all the pictures were him like touching a little child on the forehead with a flower or something, you know? And he's sort of like, they had him really glowing, you know, the way they do in this sort of Hindu thing, like they're sort of put a halo around him in the picture, you know, or maybe he really has a halo. And, you know, he's sort of like big and happy, and I thought, well, that's one of many, by the way, fantasies that I have of what, you know, Buddha should look like. And not to say that he's not a Buddha or that that's not what a Buddha should look like. But I can recognize that if that's my pigeonhole for meeting an awakened being, then I've got a really limited capacity for relating to Buddhas, you know? And I would like to have a very vast capacity for relating to Buddhas. So as a practice, you can, again, just start to seek the guru, start to seek the secret qualities in others, and go, I don't know, maybe they're an awakened being, just supporting me. Could I love myself enough to open the possibility that another being loves me that much? That they are not out to get me, but that their actions are supportive of me, actually. And can I give myself enough responsibility and agency as a mature human being to step up and work with my own life and to not blame the other person for the situation, but to say, they are supporting me, they love me, what am I going to do with this affliction that I have? It's my affliction, it's not their affliction. They may appear to have afflictions to me, but what I'm dealing with is my own affliction. It's not their problem, it's my problem. So what am I going to do with that, right? Do I love myself enough to work with myself that way? You know, that's the love of a Buddha, is to allow yourself to grow your love of yourself. And of course it says, attempt to draw blood from a Buddha with evil intent, because you can't actually kill a Buddha, because there's no one there to kill. A Buddha has no self. You could harm a body. So they're saying you could draw blood from the body of a Buddha, but you can't actually kill an awakened being. An awakened being doesn't have a self to destroy the way you have a self that could be destroyed. They're not trying to defend any self. And then finally, causing a schism in the Sangha. So this is where you cause some divisive separation among spiritual practitioners, which is one of the worst deeds. And they say that if you do that, nobody anywhere in the world can see emptiness directly, can have that experience of union with their own highest consciousness, because you're seeing yourself make a split, make a separation in the spiritual community. So the spiritual community, which is all beings, can't realize the union of their highest self, okay? So don't do those 5. And then, of course, you can get specific for yourself, like, so maybe you didn't kill your mother today, but were you really annoyed when she called? You know, or like, where are those aversion tendencies that you have, okay? Next one, holding views which produce suffering. So this is often stated as holding wrong views. And I just shifted that for this because, again, that word choice to me gets a little dogmatic. Like, this is a wrong view, and the point of a wrong view is that it's a view which causes you pain. That's why it's a wrong view. A right view is a view which causes you joy, okay? And again, it's based on your interests, that each of us only desire to be joyous and to avoid pain. So for each of us, a wrong view, a bad view, is a view which causes us pain, what we don't want, and a good view is what brings us what we do want. There's not some dogma outside of us. Affliction is motivation. Affliction is motivation. Sometimes it is, but here it's ignorance. And so to break it, traditional views which produce suffering are that you deny that your actions have consequences. You deny any past or future life. This does not mean that you have some questions about it, you don't understand fully how it works. But this means that, like, full on, no questions, totally definite in your mind, you go, there's nothing before this, there's nothing after this life. Like, matter doesn't continue, there's no transformation, nothing. I die, it's all gone. Everything blips out, right? And you have no space for any other possibility, okay? One of the reasons why that's harmful for you is that you've denied the possibility of transformation. And if you can't have transformation at the end of this life, it's not really that much possible for you to have transformation in this life, actually, okay? And of course, if your actions don't have consequences, what's the point of keeping any of these vows, right? And then any other forms of views which produce suffering, like it's other people's fault, is a big one. Yeah, question?
Isn't this vow also one of the refuge vows?
How so? Can you state the refuge vow?
Or there's the 10 and then the 12.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
This is one of...
Avoiding wrong views.
Yeah.
The misdeed of the mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then we take it again?
Yeah, it just has a different flavor. When you're taking it in the freedom vows, there are 3 types of vows I didn't mention, but I think most of you know. There are freedom vows, which relate to individual freedom. Those bring you to nirvana. They remove your mental afflictions. Those are foundational vows, and you have to have some form of those commitments before you take bodhisattva vows, okay? The idea is that if you haven't committed to yourself enough, you can't really commit to other people. You know, you have to commit to getting yourself out of suffering to a certain degree. And then there's bodhisattva vows, which are all about relationship and how you're relating. And then there are tantric vows, which sort of, they're relational, but they almost come back to the self, and there's, all I'll say is they're like a supercharged version of the two lower ones. They just take a slightly different perspective, okay? So from the perspective of the freedom vows, you would be avoiding wrong views out of a desire to clear your own suffering. From the motivation of the bodhisattva vows, you would be avoiding wrong views out of the desire to serve other beings. Okay, you see, it's just a slightly different intention, but same action. Same action. We often say the bodhisattva vows are renunciation turned outwards. So renunciation is you're avoiding your own suffering. You try to let go of the causes for your own suffering. And when you take bodhisattva vows, you're seeking to drop the causes for other people's suffering. So renunciation turned outwards. Okay. This one, there's one of two of the 18 root practices that you don't need these 4 chains to break. I'll go over them in a minute. As soon as you have one of these views strongly in your mind, you've lost your vows, of course, because you don't have the root of them anymore. Okay, almost there. Number 10 is destroying town. This is a minister vow. Destroying towns, cities, whole areas, and entire countries. And I thought this was really interesting. I saw this for the first time in one of the commentaries I was reading, that a city is defined as a group of people. Any group of people. And so you could sort of extend that out to a town, a whole area, I guess, would mean like a province or something, a state, we would say, and an entire country. So they're just increasingly sized groups of people, okay? So many of us, we read this vow and then we're like, I don't destroy cities, I don't destroy towns, you know, I don't have the button to the nuclear weapons, you know. But if you think about how you're relating to a group of people, that might be a little bit more beneficial in this. Like when you go to work, you're probably, if you go to a workplace, you're probably around a group of people. That's a type of city or a type of town. This also relates to us environmentally, and again, as I said, the Bodhisattva path is political. Everything is related, and it really matters. It matters what you buy every day. It matters what type of car you drive. It matters who you vote for. All your actions matter, and to think that we're just going into a room and sitting on a cushion and working with our mind is actually incorrect. We're working with both our inner being and our outer being, and those two are related. And we must work with both, okay? And there are times to focus primarily in the inner space, and there are times to focus on the outer space. And you'll have to sense for yourself, or if you're working with a teacher, they'll help you to sense when those times are, you know, to go more out or more in. But really start to think for yourself. You all know, and I know many of you are extreme environmentalists, so I'm certainly not going to go into some big teaching on this, but we're in a dire environmental situation, and we all really have to think about how we're participating in that. And if we don't even want to turn it outwards, you know, you just think about what kind of water is going into your body. You know, your body is your vehicle for your practice. What kind of air is going into your body? What kind of food, what kind of particles are going into your body? Where did they come from? You know, do you know where they came from? You know, do you know what they were grown with? Do you know what's in them? And it all matters. It all goes in. So this is part of this vow, and we actually participate in this vow quite directly, I think, through our political choices and our choices as consumers. So we can all get more and more refined with the types of choices that we're making for ourselves, and therefore for the entire world. Yes, ma'am?
So this one doesn't have to be just for humans. It could be for like an ant colony.
I think so. Yeah, there's no...
If you stepped in an ant colony.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I think when we're thinking about whole areas and entire countries, and we're thinking about the environment, the animals are all part of that, you know? So yeah, absolutely. Again, you can seek to understand these and should and read all the commentaries. There are texts at the end of your reading you can look at. And you should seek to understand those and figure out how you're participating in them in traditional ways. And from there, again, keep going into that vertical space and asking yourself, well, what is, you know, if you have an ant colony outside of your door, then yeah, of course, right? Then that's a great way to relate to this vow. Okay, teaching emptiness to a person who's not yet mentally prepared. So in order to break this, oh, by the way, on number 10, I didn't put anything about breaking because I would have just been repeating the vow, basically. So you teach the highest wisdom to a person who is not prepared to hear them, the wisdom teachings, and as a result of your action, the recipient becomes frightened and instead develops a wish to attain lesser spiritual goals. So if you don't have any experience or understanding of emptiness, you won't be teaching emptiness to anyone. So number one, get some teachings on emptiness. That'd be good. And do some meditation and get some experience of your relationship to wisdom. And then the question is always the same. I'm just repeating the same thing. What is best for them? What is best for the other person? That's all. And as I say, there's an exception. You don't break this if you think that they're prepared and then it turns out that they're not. You know, you just do your best. So a lot of times people come to these classes and they get really excited, which is wonderful, and interested. You know, they're having real transformations in their life. And of course, the impulse when something wonderful happens is you want to share it with everyone. And but if they're not ready, you know, you gotta say no. It just dawned on me that we were supposed to stop at 4:30. I'm so sorry. In my mind, it was 5 o'clock. I really apologize. So let's stop there. And you're all very sweet. No one pointed it out to me. I really hope that wasn't my intention. I apologize. So you can read the next few, and we'll go over them next week. There's no problem. And I would just, again, ask for, if you want to do this, is that in the next week, you think about the banyan deer, you think about the king, and relate to those energies, and maybe just choose one, at the most 3, of these vows that relate to you or that sparked your interest. And you could split the week up, let's say 6 days, so take a day off before we meet again, and take a vow, maybe, you know, 1 vow 2 days or 1 vow for 3 days, and just keep it in your consciousness as you go through your day and see what it does for you. Keep it as a practice and see how it can relate, sort of let it be your, what's that word, rudder? Your rudder for the day, okay? So again, thank you. Let's do a really short dedication. Just close your eyes. And think about your efforts to come here, your efforts to listen, our efforts to be together. And send a wish that you can embody this inspiration that you have in your heart more fully as you move through your life, and that you can take these practices as support and relate to them as tremendous loving support in your life, and to feel that support coming from all the beings around you, and that you in turn can offer it back to them, so that there is no separation, no divisiveness in your week until we meet again. Okay. Thank you. Again, I apologize about the time. No one pointed it out.